So the second question, and there's a lot more research on this question, do child pornography offenders pose a risk for a hands-on offense in the future? And in the last 5 years, we've had tons of research come out about this question. What the research is saying is that typically child pornography offenders are more fantasy-oriented, more educated, more intelligent. They're lower on the factors that we're really concerned about. We're always in the sex offender world, whether you're offline or online offender, concerned if you have a criminal history, if you have antisocial personality traits such as anti-authority issues, kind of more criminal thinking kind of personality, if you have substance abuse problems or use problems, and if you have poor self-control. So that little group is always a group that if you have a sex offender that has those, like that's going to be pretty concerning for risk. But for child pornography offenders, they tend to be very low on those. They also tend to be higher on victim empathy scales. Do you want to talk about motivation facilitation?
Yeah, so one of the things that Cito wrote about in his book, it's kind of related to that previous slide, is the idea that in the theory that he posits is that in order for someone to really commit a contact sex offense against a child, two things need to be present. The first is a motivation. You have to be motivated. Most people aren't going to have sex with a child or view child pornography if they aren't motivated to do so. The motivation comes really out of the interest and arousal to prepubescence. So the pedophilia, hebephilia is the motivation part. But the second part is the facilitation, and facilitation is that antisocial thing that we just talked about, the criminology thinking, and that what he says is that what he's found in his research is that both of these factors must be present in order for a contact sexual offense to be likely. So you have to have the motivation, the interest, pedophilia, hebephilia, as well as some of the antisocial criminological thinking. I think that's
anything. You got it. Yeah. The other thing that the research is really showing is that child pornography offenders do really well in the community. I have a group of child pornography only offenders, and everybody wants to take my group because they never miss treatment. They rarely fail out of treatment. They do very well in the community in terms of not having any more offense behaviors of any kind. Probation officers love them because for the most part, they're pretty pro-social in the community, make good decisions. If you can kind of keep them away from the internet in the beginning, do very well in the community and very well on community supervision. So the big holy grail when doing assessments for sex offenders offline has been using the actuarial risk assessments. The static 99 is probably the one that's most often used. You may not be familiar with those, but what you need to be familiar with is that existing risk assessments cannot be used with child pornography offenders. And I've had attorneys call us to kind of look over psychosexual evaluations, and the evaluator has used a static 99 with the client who's a child pornography only offender, and getting ready to submit that to the court. A prosecutor who really knows their stuff will absolutely tear that apart. They cannot be used. There's nothing to validate them. They were normed on people who had contact offenses. Now, if your child pornography offender has a contact offense in his background, then you can use it, but they can only be used with people who have contact offenses.